Back, we thank you so much for staying with us here on SA Today, as we've been reporting since this morning that today 9 more grades joined grades 7 and 12s who have already returned to school. To talk to us about what to expect going forward, we welcome on the line Professor Thabo Msibi. Prof is the Dean of Education at the University of KwaZulu-Natal. Prof, good afternoon to you, and thank you so much for joining us here on the SABC News channel.
Good afternoon, Talisa. Thank you so much for having me.
Prof, more grades have gone back today. What's the most important thing to do for now, for the learners and the teachers?
Look, I think a lot of these children have been sitting at home for a significant amount of time, some for about 5 months. So they will have some challenges in terms of adjusting back to school. They are not used to the routine at school. And of course, also just the implications, the COVID implications with all the changes that are going to be happening in school. So the school would have to be, and the management in particular at school would have to be extraordinarily supportive to those children in making sure that they adjust to the new normal presented by COVID-19. And of course, there are going to be incredible challenges also for the teachers who now have to manage considerably reduced classes and will have to implement strategies of ensuring that there's physical distancing in the classes and ensuring that the curriculum is met. So it's going to be a complex mix of things that are going to have to happen in school, and ensuring that the teachers continue with the curriculum implementation, ensuring that there's safety, and of course also ensuring that the adjustment for children occurs.
I wanted to touch on that point that you've just made, Prof, to say that for teachers it's not just going to be about teaching, but of course, as the department has been saying all along, that they're trying to save both the academic year and the livelihood. So they're going to have to be teachers and also to play health workers at the same time.
It's a very complex situation, Palisa, because I think for the first time, I think for many of these teachers, it's about firstly thinking through about their own health and well-being. We know, for example, that children are less likely to contract, to spread, to get ill, first of all, from COVID-19. And there is some data suggesting that spreading it from one person to the next may be limited to some extent amongst children. But when it comes to contracting COVID for adults, there is that risk and that possibility. So teachers are stressed about that in the first instance, and now having to adjust and ensure that they look after their own health and well-being, and also the health and well-being of the children, and also having to meet up with the demands of the curriculum. It's going to be quite a challenge for them to juggle all of those responsibilities. But I think we also have to bear in mind that the wish and desire to save the academic year at whatever cost needs to be looked at quite seriously. We must accept that the learning is happening under very strenuous and different sets of circumstances at the moment. And so that means that the type of content that we have to deliver selectively, carefully selected content to make sure that we cover only the materials and content that is critical. We also have to make sure that we understand that even the examination and testing processes in and of themselves are going to need to be reconsidered. You are aware that we've had a significant number of deaths due to COVID, many of them happening in families where these children are located. So there's a lot of trauma, not only for the children, but also for the teachers. And to learn within a space that is deeply traumatic presents its own set of circumstances and challenges. So I think we have to bear in mind all of these complex situations and navigations that teachers have to deal with and manage at school.
Very complex indeed. And I think now a very important question is, how do we come into the picture as parents, Prof? How do we assist in this regard as parents?
I think parents will have to play a very important role. Remember that there are going to be different strategies in which schools are going to be managing the situation. Others have chosen to platoon. Others are going to be attending at alternative days. Others are going to be attending at a rotational basis. So the type of support really that has been asked of parents whilst the children were at home is still going to be required as the children return to school. It is going to be particularly important also for parents to ensure that they look after the mental well-being and the psychological well-being of the kids. I mean, it's not as if we're returning into a space where COVID-19 has already been fully dealt with. We still have the crisis of COVID-19 in our hands, and there is still that possibility, for example, of another surge if we don't take careful measures. So parents have to make sure that they offer the psychological support at home. They also have to make sure that the curriculum support that they were offering, and we hope they were offering at home whilst children were still at home, that continues. Of course, it's also understanding that the demands that are being placed on teachers sometimes are quite unfair, and we have to accept that teachers cannot be social workers, health workers, and curriculum delivers at the same time. So parents have to come to the to take up a significant amount of responsibility in the learning of their children, and actually in also supporting them in terms of their well-being psychologically.
So we understand that only about 20% of school children have access to online schooling. That is according to the department, of course. And it's also estimated, Prof, that only about 10% of households have internet access. The majority of learners would have missed half of the school year by the end of August. Will it be possible to try to fit the 5 months work in just over 3 months? You've made mention of the fact that they will have to deal with what you termed critical content going forward. So how do you think this is going to be restructured so to make sure that as much as children may have lost a significant time of the academic year, but they don't lose more going forward, and they sort of try to fit in what may have been lost in the past?
Well, Lisa, I think you ask a very important question. We have to keep in mind that there has been a significant loss of time, learning time, as a result of COVID-19. Of course, also we know that a lot of the sort of more advantaged schools have continued to study through online means, meaning that there's already an existing inequality in terms of content access and learning between those advantaged schools and the more disadvantaged schools. But to expect that the curriculum be fitted into a 3-month period or 4-month period that is remaining, it's a pablum dream. I think we have to really think carefully about how we structure the curriculum moving forward in terms of incremental knowledge, and also selecting the knowledge that is most worthwhile and most critical in terms of delivering it this year. But what would be required is that in the next couple of years, teachers would have to restructure, re-coordinate the offering to make sure that whatever content was lost in this year is going to be caught up with in the following years. Of course, also this has direct bearing for the higher education space as well, in that higher education will have to come to the party and make certain adjustments in terms of ensuring that there's a foundational component to the offering that they offer next year, because we know for sure that students who will write matric this year inevitably will not be as good as students who would have written matric in the previous years when there was no COVID and no crisis, and as what we've experienced this year. So certainly we must be selective in the curriculum that is going to be on offer. But what is good is that we must also remember that curriculum is not fixed. It is actually a human creation. We decide what knowledge is worthwhile. We decide how to package that knowledge. We decide how to present it in incremental terms based on child development. So in essence, we can still catch up on some of the lost time and lost content, but certainly not this year. It cannot be expected that it be done in this year.
All right, Prof, time constraints, we have to leave it at that, but we thank you so much for talking to us.